Okay. Thank you for your patience while we were trying to work out whatever was going on with the screens here. I don't know what I broke. I apologize. So this is fundraising for FRC. This is getting started guide. This is actually, just to be clear, not follow these 4 simple steps to get $25,000. I wish. My goal today is to help spark you to think about some ideas, spark your creativity, to think about what might work for your team in creating something new. Okay?
Are your slides going to be available?
My slides will be available, I promise.
I'm almost out of battery.
And that is a very good segue for me to mention that I am literally deaf in one ear and hard of hearing in the other, so I'm not going to hear people if you talk to me, but my husband Brett and Sam here has a mic, will be listening and watching and helping me figure out when people have questions, okay? That's a fun little fact about me, I can't hear you. Who am I? When my oldest child was going into 9th grade and aging out of his FLL team, I happened to see an email from our school saying there's an info meeting for this new FRC team in town. I made him go, determined that I was not going to be involved because I was already doing too much volunteering. That was in 2016. 2 of my kids have graduated out of the program, and I am still here. I have been with 6328 since the team was founded. Our rookie season was 2017. The team was founded in 2016. I am a business team mentor. I have nothing whatsoever to do with the robot. I don't know how it works. Anything else, fundraising, outreach, logistics, sponsorship, everything else I can talk to you about. I have been with the Littleton Robotics Board of Directors since 2017. We are an independent community team run by an independent nonprofit organization. I served as president from 2017 to 2023. I'm still on the board. I do, in my day job, work in nonprofit administration for a teeny tiny nonprofit with 2 part-time employees, but I have a lot of fun with it. We support children who are born deaf and hard of hearing and their families and parents who suddenly have no idea how to talk to their child, and so we work with them to get the services and support that they need. It's a wonderful group. Previously, I have done corporate communications, strategic communications, technical training, technical documentation, so a lot of experience on the business side of things. And I have not participated in FIRST. I am actually one of the few people here who is not an alum, but I am a parent of 2 alum. And a 3rd child who wants nothing to do with robotics. That's okay. But most importantly, I want to point out that I came into working with Littleton Robotics with no experience in fundraising. I don't have a professional background in development or grant writing. Everything that I've learned on the job, and I chose what to take on based on what I felt like I could learn how to do, which means you all can too. You don't need a background in development. There's so much that can be done with just a willingness to jump in and learn. So that is a key takeaway right there. I'm going to talk, I'm trying to see what I wrote. This is kind of divided into 2 parts. We're going to talk about the prep work before you even dive into actually doing fundraising. And then some ideas to maybe spark some thoughts about what you can be doing to fundraise for your team and helping your kids develop their thoughts. But I'm going to tell you a secret. The key to successful fundraising really is in the prep work you put into it before you even talk to anybody. As I was developing this presentation and creating an outline for all the points I wanted to make, there was more and more and more and more that I was wanting to say about all of the prep work that goes into this, into development work. And when I stopped to think about it, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's like mise en place for cooking, if you've heard that term. If you do all of the prep work ahead of time and have all of the pieces laid out, then the execution becomes a lot smoother and a lot more efficient. Okay. So let's dive into into some of that prep work. Step 0, create a budget. Understanding the scope of what you are looking for is the first step. Are you looking for $500? Are you looking for $40,000? That's going to be very different approaches, right? Is there a minimum that you need before you can run your season? Are you focused on taking things to the next level? Are you targeting some nice to have bonus funds for something that you would like to start doing? And then this is basics of budget. It doesn't have to be complex. You don't need some sort of fancy accounting software. A spreadsheet is fine. What are your anticipated expenses, the things you know happen every year, registration fees, parts for the robot, travel expenses, all of that kind of thing. Are there any capital equipment investments you need to make that year? And understand really what's required versus what's a nice to have that you could do without if you had to. And then your anticipated income. What does your school cover if you're a school team? As an independent nonprofit team, we don't get funding from anybody but what we raise. So we have to look at our budget really carefully each year. Are there activity fees that you know you have coming in from students? You have existing fundraisers that they've been running for a few years, so you have a sense of what they can bring in. So just understand the scope of what you're trying to do. There's a logistics piece. How will you be able to accept funding? If somebody says they want to give you a donation, that's great, but how do they get it to you? Does it go into a school account if you're a school team? Does it go into your first dashboard? Is there a booster club that can accept donations on your behalf? You have a fiscal sponsor like 4-H teams do, or are you completely independent like we are? Know whether or not those donations are tax deductible, either for a nonprofit or through a school system. Do you have an accessible bank account? None of these have like the one answer that need to be. Just understand what the logistics are so that when someone asks, you know what to tell them. I will say tax deductible is usually an important thing to be able to point out to donors. That's a benefit to them. So either through some sort of nonprofit organization or a public school system can also be, through a different classification, will also be tax deductible for donors. Okay. So here's where we start getting into a little bit more meat about what it means to prep for your fundraising. Craft your story. What's the story of your team that you want other people to know? It doesn't mean spending buckets and buckets of time writing pages and pages of narrative and all the detailed history of your team. It means knowing the key talking points that are important to what makes your team unique and what you want somebody to know. Think of it as the scope of like an elevator pitch. You have 2 minutes max to talk about what makes you unique, what's important to your team, what's your mission, what are your team values, and what's your impact that you're making on the community that somebody thinks is valuable enough to give you money. Track hours and data. So lots of different presentations today have talked about data collection and having the data to back up the story that you're telling. How many hours are your mentors volunteering? How many outreach hours are your students doing? How many students are coming through all of your various programs? That's the kind of data that somebody who's looking for where to put their money that's impactful is going to be wanting to hear. So you're collecting data, statistics, validate the talking points of the story that you're working on, and the last piece that's kind of thrown in there for prep is have at least a basic online presence, a website or social media presence that's mostly current. Something from 10 years ago probably is going to be more of a detriment than a help. But the idea is you have a place that somebody can go to get more information beyond your 2-minute elevator pitch. And then if you have materials that have links, QR codes to websites, that kind of thing, again, it does not have to be complex, but it does convey legitimacy to your program and what you're doing as well. So let's talk a little bit more about crafting your story and telling the story of what your program is and what you do and how you impact the community. what you're saying next. Second piece is you're stating the problem. What is it that you're facing that your program is working with? Very brief, just enough so the listener understands. You have to assume that they don't know anything about FIRST robotics. We're trying to provide students with hands-on education to be able to address technology needs in the future. Once you state the problem, you want to make sure to state that you have a solution and what that is. You don't want to just state a problem and put it out there and say, yeah, maybe somebody will fix it. Say how your program is addressing that problem, very specifically. What do you do to provide a solution that other people are going to want to give to help support you? Fourth step, brag. Talk about the accomplishments of your program. Don't minimize what you've already accomplished. You want to describe all of the exciting things that you're doing. This is not about winning competitions and awards. Right? We all know that the program is not about that. It's about empowering students and educating students. Maybe last year was the first time that we put in sword drive and the kids were able to make it work on the field on their first match, and that was this huge accomplishment. And they're learning new technology, so those are the key pieces to focus on. What is your impact? How are you scaling to make it bigger? Where do you want this to go next? This is what makes it real for the person that's listening to your spiel. And then the last piece, and this is the piece that a lot of people forget about or feel kind of nervous about including, that's the call to action. Tell them what you want from them, very specifically. Your donation of $500 will be able to do this for the team. Your donation of providing printing services for the team's t-shirts means that we can put this money somewhere else. Tell them specifically what you want from them. Okay? If you know so when you're thinking about crafting that story, that kind of 2-minute summary, short summary of who you are and what you want and what you're trying to do, think about who it is that you're talking to, know your audience. Can you understand their perspective, including what they want to hear, what's their interest, what's their skin in the game here, and their potential motivation. Always start with a hook to grab their attention. We covered that a little bit. One of my favorite hooks when I'm working with the kids to develop their outreach materials for this kind of thing is to talk about, imagine walking into a packed sports arena with spectators bedecked in their favorite team colors and cheering for the competition at the top of their lungs. Most people outside of robotics, that immediately brings up to mind a basketball game or a football game, something like that, right? But then you can turn the tables, which is the hook part. But they're not cheering for the basketball game. They're cheering for robots built by high school students. It's the only sport where every student can go pro if they choose to. Immediately you captured somebody's attention, like, oh, wait a minute, what is this? This isn't what I thought. You want to infuse whatever you're saying with some sort of personal, emotional connection. How has it impacted you? I say you, I mean, the students, whoever is doing the presenting here. How has it impacted them? Put a face to the personal connection. Don't be afraid to go for the emotion. If they cry, that's okay. Make it real. But the important part is to know the points ahead of time that you want to make, have a roadmap beforehand so that you can make progress towards the goal of the communication you're trying to make. You're not meandering. You have a point you want to make it succinctly, and then figure out what is the next step to engage them. Show that you have the solution. Some of the don'ts here, like I said, don't say, here's the problem we're trying to address, and then you want to say, yes, here's the solution that we're proposing that works towards that. That's why we're the right place to support. Dry statistics are not going to be helpful at this stage when you're just trying to engage them and get their interest. Statistics and data will come in later when you're supporting what you're saying and proving why you are the right place to be making this impact. jargon and insider-only language is another trap that's really easy to fall into, especially when you're very familiar with the first community. FRC is meaningless to somebody who's not intimately involved with FIRST, right? Same with impact award. On its own, that tells a listener nothing about what it is and what it means. So you need to, kind of dial it back and figure out what is the succinct point that you're trying to make. On our team, we created a sponsor outreach training program that has every student go through the process of crafting their own story about the team and its impact on them. It's not easy. This is not something that high school students come in knowing how to do, right? This is a good skill for them to be learning, but it takes some patience and some practice and some teaching and some guidelines. That's what we're here for. Once you have the stories and the points that you want to make, then you can put together some simple information packets that you can give to people. Can be printed, can be published online, can be emailed. Who and what is your team? What do you do? Keep it short. Focus on your mission and your vision and your goals. And some basic demographics. If you're trying to reach two potential sponsors in Manchester, New Hampshire, you want to say, yeah, we serve these students. We're not trying to help the kids down in Providence, Rhode Island. That's appealing to your local groups. Why should somebody contribute? What's the impact you're making? What are your past accomplishments? Understand your benefits to sponsors. You're not just talking about recognition levels, but you are helping to support the workforce that will be coming to work for you in later years, right? And how is the logistics? How do they get donations to the team? Photos and short video clips that you can link to can do a lot instead of a wall of text to illustrate the picture. Again, think about somebody who doesn't understand FIRST or know what these robots are about. Seeing one standing next to a person and understanding how they interact in the field is a whole different ballgame than just saying we're a high school robotics competition team. What does that mean? What's this big? Across like humanoid robots, what does that mean? Sometimes a picture can help more than trying to describe it. Okay. That was a lot all at once. That's all of the prep work. It's about telling a story. Questions? We're going to move on to some of the ways that you can use that information. Okay. So once you have all of that information, then you can execute on some different ways for fundraising for a team. I've broken this up into 5 different categories that have a lot of overlap and blurry lines, but that's okay. We'll go through each one. And there's no one right answer for any particular team. It's as unique as every team is unique as to what your students, your mentors are feeling they have the bandwidth to handle and depending on the scope of what you need, right? Simple fundraisers. These are, things that are easy to set up, don't require a lot of effort. Restaurant fundraisers, we've all seen those, right? Where you publicize, encourage everybody to go eat at a restaurant, tell them they're, there to support the robotics team, and you can get a few $100 at the end of the night. The restaurant benefits by getting more people to drive more people in on usually what's one of their slower nights of the week. Big effort there is doing the publicity work and driving a lot of people to the restaurant. Selling items at local events. Never underestimate the power of bake sale, right? Our Girl Up Club often does bake sales at various community events that we go to and raise several $100s that night. In this photo, actually, the photo is from our last Littleton Holiday Bazaar, which is a wonderful event that our town puts on. That's like a holiday craft fair, but it is only for school groups and local nonprofit organizations to set up tables and do fundraising and raffles and that kind of thing right before the holidays. So our team was there. We were showing off the robot and what we do. There are on the table several different things that we're selling, including these Lego earrings that our kids put sell there for like $5–10 each. I love them. There's bags of quart size and gallon size bags stuffed with random Lego that people have donated to us over the years that you sell for $10–20 a bag, and kids love it because they get this dig through the bag to see what they got in their Lego. And right before the holidays, it's a nice little stocking stuffer that parents like to come through. So there's lots of creative ideas. The CAD team and the manufacturing team can work together to design the little 3D printed thing, tchotchkes you can sell, that kind of thing. Branded merch. There's so many websites now, like Custom Ink and Spreadshirt and Teespring, where you can easily set up a fundraiser to sell either regular merchandise or special edition branded stuff. Super easy, doesn't take a lot of effort. And then there's always the peer-to-peer and crowdfunding sites. Things like GoFundMe are usually best reserved for when you need a boost for one particular thing, to travel the world, one particular capital equipment that you need to purchase. But the nonprofit I work for has actually had really good success when members of the board ask for donations as birthday gifts. They'll set up a fundraiser on Facebook. Say, in honor of my 50th birthday, I'm asking for donations to this group that means so much to me and my family. And that's a fairly simple way to set up a fundraiser as well. So if you don't have a lot of bandwidth, you can still do a lot and bring in funds. Next step is fundraising events. There's lots and lots of examples online for how to do various fundraising events and all the planning documents and checklists for how to run them successfully. These have more effort. They usually require a small group of people to do the planning, the advertising, put it together, the logistics. There may be an upfront investment in some supplies. But in the end, if you are able to make that effort, they can have a bigger payoff of $3,000 to $10,000 depending on the scope of your event. Car washes are very common, that kind of thing. The photo here is an example that from 2018, 2019 that we did a pie in the face contest. We went around, again, we're in a small town where everybody knows everybody, right? We went around to a lot of the prominent citizens, the police chief, the library director, the elementary school principal, and said, will you let us sell tickets for people to come and put a paper plate full of whipped cream in your face? And they did. And it was really fun, and the kids had a great time. And it raised a good amount of money. So it's the kind of thing that can also be a community building event at the same time. Raffles. Raffles are a whole separate category. They can be easy and a super fun way to do some fundraising. And you can often raise several $1,000 or more with a raffle. There's a big fund. You may have to pay for prizes, or you can do the work to get them donated. But there's state by state, there are rules about running raffles that you need to be aware of before you do this, right? It is a charitable gaming, it is a game of chance. So the state attorney general's office in Massachusetts is involved. For example, in Massachusetts, to run a raffle, you have to be a nonprofit or a public school, some sort of public entity. You're required to have a valid raffle permit issued by the state for the cost of $10, of course, which requires that you are in good standing with the Attorney General's office. You don't have outstanding tax forms or other kinds of things going on. You must file a raffle proceeds form within 30 days of the raffle drawing and pay a 5% gaming tax. Even nonprofits have to pay that tax. You have to file an annual raffle report with the state that describes all the raffles you've run over the years, who the winners are, if they've won a prize more than $250, because they should be declaring that on their income tax, in theory. And there's additional auditing and record keeping rules if a raffle ticket costs more than $10, or if the prize value is more than $10,000. So when we run raffles, we're very careful to keep ticket prices no more than $10. Don't go into that. But there are, these rules can be different state by state. I would, if you are thinking of running a raffle, if you are already running a raffle, I would make sure that you have looked up the state rules for where you are and make sure that you are following them. Online raffle ticket sales can be tricky because of the different rules in different states, so just be aware of that and do your research. That said, if you are able to make it through all of that tape, so to speak, and personally I find it really not that hard to do. It can be worthwhile to run raffle. There are several different kinds. There's lots of examples online for how to do this kind of thing. 50-50 raffles where at an event, people buy a ticket, whoever gets the winning ticket drawn takes home half the pot, keep half the pot. It generally works best at kind of a one-day event. Calendar raffles where you solicit donations from the community for small gift cards or small services, have one assigned to each day in the calendar, and every day you draw a winning ticket and see who wins that day. Basket raffles, again, solicit a bunch of donations, put together a bunch of different baskets with different prizes in them, with a little bucket in front of each, and people go put their tickets in the one they want and draw. It's always a lot of fun at different events. Our elementary school had one that raised $15,000 annually. It was amazing. And then there's the big ticket raffle where you have like a $50 ticket to win a $3,000 designer bag that's been donated, that kind of thing. This is actually the one that we've run for several years, our Night on the Town raffle, where it's a $10 ticket, again, to stay just under the rules of having to do the extra auditing. And you would win 2 tickets to an event of your choice, a concert, a game, a show, and dinner after 2. It was very popular. We usually raised about $5,000. So those are kind of fundraising, different kinds of fundraising events that as a team you can run. The next type of fundraising, of course, is finding sponsors for the team, where they're just going to give you money for doing what you do. There is a blurry line, of course, between sponsor and grant. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm generally referring to sponsors as companies or organizations that you solicit for donations, while grants are usually coming from foundations where there's an application process and selection committee, that kind of thing. So usually the first question is, where do I go to find a sponsor? Who can I find to just want to give me money, right? Year over year, the most reliable source of sponsors we have are parent and mentor employers. There are companies that are familiar with FIRST and have funds set aside for sponsorship if you have an active employee who's working with the team. We also have a lot of success with parents simply going to HR office and asking who's in charge of community development and community investment that a lot of companies have, and asking for sponsorship. Local businesses. What company names do you see on the back of the local youth sports league shirts that are sponsoring? And can you go, do they already have a history of working with the community and being supportive of the community? Who sponsors your PTA and PTO? Who is advertising in the theater program for the play that's running in the spring? Those are all local businesses who are already showing a willingness to support local programs. Be prepared to understand what beyond just cash you can ask for. What are the in-kind donations that would be impactful for your team that you might be able to ask for? In Massachusetts, and I assume it's similar in other states, the Attorney General's office website has a search function where you can find all of the local businesses in your town or by your zip code. So that's a great place to start with finding local businesses. Is there a local chamber of commerce you can network through, or other business networking community? School newsletters can reach a wider swath of parents than just the parents in their program. Does anybody still have a local town newspaper? You're lucky. We don't. But working with editors of the local newspaper to put out stories about your team and saying what also be very, very successful. There's so much power in the connections that can be made at community outreach events here. Library demos, town fairs, holiday parades, get visible, make personal connections. That's by putting student faces in particular to the team and talking to other people, then when they reach out later to ask for help, they're more likely to say yes because they already have a connection to the team and understand the story behind your team. Can you ask to maybe schedule a demo with the mayor's office or present at town meeting or at your select board meeting? Again, this is about making connections in the community and having spread the ripple effect of spreading the word out about what you do so that when you make an ask, people are already familiar with the program. Get to know your local legislators, town government, your state legislators. They love to hear what the youth programs in the districts are doing. And you can ask them to then take a photo of the team and put it on their website so you're getting out in front of more people and more people know who the team is and what they do. Once you've made a connection, don't be afraid to directly ask for what you need. A $200 sponsorship would do this for the team. Can you help? Or do you know someone who can help? Know what your sponsor recognition program is. Common recognition, we all see the sponsors on the back of the shirts, listed on the website, do a demo at their office, that kind of thing. Tour at your workshop. When you're thinking about sponsor recognitions, though, make sure you're putting down what you can actually follow through with. Don't promise to send a 6-foot cardboard cutout of your robot if you're not going to be able to do that at the end of the year. It can be fun, but it's a big ask. Once you have a list of local businesses that you want to approach from something like the Chamber of Commerce or the Attorney General's office, create a spreadsheet, and then it's time to research. Get to know the online search engine of your choice. Find contact info. What kind of work do they do so you can prioritize, right? If there's somebody local with a small sheet metal fab, might be higher on your priority list than a 2-person local daycare center in terms of making the connection and getting them to support it. We like to run sponsor outreach campaigns where we get our students together. They work on crafting their story, their email template, their phone script, and they work together to go through the list of sponsors, potential sponsors that have been identified, and send out emails, make phone calls, go in person in a local main street where you can walk to local businesses, that kind of thing. You're more likely to get a yes from students than if the adults show up and ask, aside from the employers. But the students, because this is going to be new to pretty much everybody, so review what they're saying, practice with them, role play, all of that first. It's an important skill, but it is a new skill. Gracious professionalism applies here too. There's going to be a lot of no's, and that's okay. Just say thank you with professionalism, and thank you for your time, and maybe we'll come back and ask next year and see if you can help them. If it's a yes, be ready to know what the next step is. Are they giving you money? How do they get it to you? If it's an in-kind sponsorship, what are they doing, and who you need to connect with to make it happen? Once you find the sponsor, the next step is to keep that sponsor. And we want to turn a yes this year into a yes next year. It's much more efficient to go back to keep those sponsors going rather than having to start again every single year. Make the sponsors feel appreciated, tell them thank you, cultivate long-term relationships. There's lots of different ways you can show appreciation. We like to do a sponsor open house once a year where it's just for our sponsors for that year, where we bring them into the shop, have the kids go give tours, explain everything that they're doing, everything that they've learned, what their favorite thing on the robot is, that whole thing. So that's the basics of sponsorship. Next step is grants, which is usually requires an application process from independent grant-making organizations. Again, this is about research ahead of time. awarding grants to other robotics teams in your area? Are they open to the idea of funding additional teams? Now, unless you ask. If you don't have bandwidth to spend a lot of time doing grant writing and grant research, at the very least, look through the grants that are available directly through FIRST on the FIRST website. You can at least start there. Some are restricted, which means they can only be used for registration fees, so understand those guidelines ahead of time. When you are talking to local grant-making organizations, workforce development groups, service organizations, local community foundations, we've had a lot of success looking for ways to partner with them. Can we send students to volunteer at one of their events, and then they turn around and apply for a grant through them too? So you're looking to partner, not just take. Is there an opportunity for mutual support? Watch for deadlines on grants. Most of them have quarterly, annual deadlines, and so if you miss the deadline this year, you have to wait until next year. If you start doing several grant applications, you'll notice that many of the questions are the same. Don't start from scratch every time. You can put together answers, both short versions and long versions, for the most common grant questions, copy and paste, and then customize for what that particular grant is looking for. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. This is where you can use specific data to back up what you're talking about, as well as, in those pre-prepared basic answers, have some compelling stories from your students about what it is personally meant for them that you can use for the appropriate questions. I have a whole list here of typical grant questions. I'm not going to go through all of them. There are as many unique answers to each of these questions as there are teams in FIRST. But if you have kind of short 3 to 4 sentence answers, as well as longer 3-paragraph answers to each of these, you'll be able to answer 80% of grant questions. Okay. And then the last point I want to make is about record keeping. You want to keep track of all of these sponsors and events and grants that you've done, both so that you don't have multiple students going to the same potential sponsor with the same thing, like stepping on each other's toes. You only want to ask once, at least once per year. Which grant applications did you fill out? What was the response? What's the contact info so you can go back next year? And how did you make the connection? Is it through a particular mentor, so you need to keep track of that and ask them again next year when you go talk to your HR department again or as teams. Spreadsheets are your friend. Just keep a shared spreadsheet of all of this information. Okay? Do students even know what file cabinets are anymore? Like I said, I can share the slides. There's a whole list of resources here that I found to be really useful, that have a lot of templates, both for emails, for sponsor information packets, for one-pagers, for all the different kinds of materials that you might need to put together. So I just want to summarize a little bit, 4 key takeaways, I think. Craft your story. Tell the story of your team, what makes you unique, and tell it in a compelling and engaging way. Network and outreach. Make connections everywhere you can, and make that personal, make them see the team and your program in a very personal way. Tracking systems, so you know what the team overall is doing, where you see success and what things are not working so well, and then communicate with your sponsors, maintain your relationships in the long term. And this is a year-over-year building process. So with that deluge of information in 45 minutes, if anybody has a few questions, this is the last presentation of the day, so maybe Sam will give us a little bit of leeway.
Not up to me, it's when the barbecue starts. How do you get
members of your team community to help?
The students and
Students and parents, yeah. How do you do that, other than like being the grumpy mentor?
there is some being the grumpy mentor, right? We also have a series of requirements to be on the team, and part of that is you are involved in outreach at some level, and you participate in fundraising at some level. Maybe that's sending 5 emails to local businesses, but that's part of being a community, that is part of being part of the team. Everybody has skin in the game, and especially as, like I said, an independent nonprofit, if the kids aren't out there raising money, we don't have money to spend on the robot. So, like, they see the direct benefit, but it is a requirement.
Hi, just a quick question. So, we are a community-based nonprofit as well, and we have been fortunate to, with our grant funding. But I wanted to know, and I know FIRST, from what I hear, FIRST doesn't want you to like charge the kids a fee. But does anybody, or is it okay to like ask for like a small registration fee? Because we also, our kids come in the evening at dinner time. So we provide a meal for them. And I feel like I do all this fundraise, I don't fundraise, we write grants, and I feel like it should be okay for the parents to like make a small contribution.
Well, so I will say, we charge an activity fee for our students.
Activity fee, that's what I'm gonna use the word, okay.
We
I'm
do charge
looking
an
for a
activity
word,
fee.
okay.
There is always language around it that if it provides a hardship for a family, we can come talk to a school. Financial hardship in a family is never going to prevent somebody from participating. But we do charge an activity fee, and that.
I think that they don't want to have
Yes, so if I can make one other suggestion. So this was something that we actually got cited for in our Impact Award at the Great Boston this year. A couple years ago, a woman came up to us and said, "Do you guys do birthday parties?" We said, "We do now." So we do probably maybe 6 birthday parties a year now. And it's for kids anywhere from 8 to 11 years old or so. We have a bunch of STEAM activities that we do at our outreach events anyway. And so we go to the party, we bring a robot if they have enough room, we bring a little Lego robot, we do a couple STEAM activities, and we play a couple games with them. We're there for about 2 hours, and we just ask for a donation, and we get anywhere from $200 to $500.
Just to follow up to that, we got a weird email from a group last year. They're like, we need 3 people who know how robots work to help us run a robot team building event. I was like, okay, whatever. We agreed to come out. They paid each of our kids like $400 for the day, and I think they made 50 grand running it. So you can one up your prices. Go big.
Thank you so much, everybody. Like I said, I worked with Sam and the organizers to make the slides available so you can actually have voice.
We're going to make all the slides